it's supposed to be a calibrative voice.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of FJ users, harmony, extroverted feeling users, hear it as a critical voice.
Yes. Yeah. So
not calibrative.
Right. Exactly. So introverted thinking or accuracy, again, is a detachment from self. Like that's part of its core. Like that's what it does, is it tries to detach from self. And which actually is one of the biggest differences between it and say introverted feeling or authenticity, which attaches to self. It's like very much, it's associated with self. Introverted thinking disassociates from self. And so because of that, when it disassociates, it looks at the situation with a critical eye and it's trying to find the truth of something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how I feel about that. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the truth. And that's why core principles are so valuable, because most truths aren't truths. They're just perspectives. Most things that people believe are not facts. They're just ways of interpreting the world, right? They're not actually provable, logically consistent concepts. They're just the thought we had and we believed it when we thought it. So because of that, introverted thinking takes a step back, accuracy takes a step back, and then it looks with a critical eye at what's going on inside the mind. What's the coding? What are my thoughts? What are my beliefs? What are the things I'm thinking? I heard a person with ENTP preferences try to explain to their team, because they were in a position of leadership. They're like, listen, there's a difference between what you believe and what you think and what you know. And he's like trying to explain all these three things. What you believe and what you think and what you know are not all the same, right? Just because you believe it doesn't mean you know it, right? Just because you think it doesn't mean you believe it, right? Like he was trying to create this distinction of all these things. And introverted thinking is almost always trying to take a step back and go, okay, so what is knowable? What is true? What is something that I can actually noodle out? And what's a mystery of the world that's just hangs as a mystery of the world? And that's why core principles become so important, because they're the irreducible, logically congruent, consistent facts that don't change regardless of what you want and moment in time. So it is a critical eye. But when it is in a position of uncertainty, it feels like it is criticizing the self, which is part of what it does, by the way. It does criticize the self because it's trying to ameliorate the self. It's trying to encourage the self to be a better version.
Yeah.
If we can gain in competence, why wouldn't we? Let's be more competent. Let's be more capable. Let's be a better version of this. How do we improve all the time? As opposed to taking this thinking and putting it into the outside world, which is what extroverted thinking or effectiveness does, by going like, okay, let's get 5% better and create a beachhead. Let's continue to make progress in the outside world. Introverted thinking is taking that thought and bringing it in-house. How do I improve the self? 5% every day, create a beachhead, right? How can I continue to build in my skills? Which is why competence becomes so important. So if you have this as a place of uncertainty, it just sounds like you're constantly criticizing yourself. Right? You're not doing good enough. You should be better. You're not competent enough. You're not smart enough. You're not capable enough. You don't know enough, right? And so now this is a place that is really undermining self-esteem. You can have great relationships in the outside world if you're an FJ type. You can have all these people who love you and rely on you and you rely on them, and you have a beautiful tribe of human beings you're connected to.
Yeah.
And then you've got this voice inside that goes, yeah, but that thing you said like 2 weeks ago to that one person, you shouldn't have said that. That was a terrible thing to say. And you probably hurt their feelings. You should have done better, right? And this idea of, we should all be doing better. It's such a vague concept. I remember reading a while back on social media, somebody's post was just, I invite you to do better. And I was like, can you give me some details, or like an area, or like anything specific, or do I just generally have to be a better human being, right? So this idea of like inviting each other to do better has just enough of a thought of improvement, but without any specifics at all. So it's a very undermining concept, right? Oh, you're just saying like it's all of me, like the whole thing is just a problem, right? I invite you, all of you, 100% of you, to do better. And it's like, yeah, well, I invite myself to do that every day. It's called an insistent mean girl voice, and it's actually killing me, and I kind of hate myself and everybody else.
Yeah.
So it can become a very critical inner voice, because it's a place of why am I thinking this? Is it because it's true? Am I a terrible person? Am I stupid? I don't know. I don't have my facts straight. I am not logical enough. Like, what's really going on here? And the further down it goes in certainty, the worse it gets. So just like the TJ types can go, can they have this question in their mind of like, am I a good person? Am I well-intended? Am I doing the right things? And they just go, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to put it over here. FJ types can do the same thing with introverted thinking or accuracy, right? It's like maybe you're not being maybe you shouldn't be thinking everything you know think or believing everything you think. Maybe you're not being logical enough. Maybe you don't know enough on this topic. Maybe you don't have your ducks in a row, right? Maybe you're not as smart as you think you are, right? And it's just like I can either get obsessed with that and that undermines my self-confidence or self-esteem rather, or I can just shove that thought over here, right? And just not look at it and not think about it. And every once in a while I'll go off on a little spiel about my opinions of the world, and then later on I'll beat myself up for saying a whole bunch of stuff that I may or may not have been thinking is true. I was just getting off my chest, and now my self-esteem is being leached into the shadow by this big question of whether or not I'm good enough.